Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions every day. Every morning we answer your questions. So if you've got questions, of course, you can throw them into Makana. You can ask those questions, vote on the questions, talk about the questions. If you're not a Makana, at any time of the day, you can actually go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global and ask your question. And it'll come in. We'll process it, make sure that it's appropriate, well-formed, non-political, and it's year of politics. So be careful of those, and throw those questions in, and we'll get them in either today or typically tomorrow. Again, make sure that they're really focused on media and non-political, and they're one question at a time. So if we see a lot of question marks, if you're asking like 10 questions in one question, we'll probably skip it there. So throw those questions in, and while we're talking about questions, let's jump into them. Bill, what do we have?
First one comes from Douglas Carmichael this morning, and he says, I shot some video with Blackmagic Camera, and the output files show as 16:9 in QuickTime Player. However, they came out in 4:3. Is there any way to salvage my footage?
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, there's always a way to salvage something, but the question is, what are the compromises you're going to have to deal with to do that? This can happen in a couple of ways. Most common would be that they're actually 16:9 as the files show, but there's black pillar boxes on the side, so the image area is 4:3. We see that happen a good little bit with people who have a camera set one way and they're bringing in footage from the other format. If that is the case, if it is actually a 16:9 with a 4:3 image in the middle of it, your only choices are to expand it and crop it if you want it to fill full frame, or live with it as a window inside the larger 16:9 window. Both of those are, no matter how you deal with it, it's probably going to be a little less than completely satisfying, because if you blow it up enough to get those horizontal pillar boxes out of the way, you're going to lose a little bit of resolution, and you're also going to lose vertical at the top and bottom, the space at the top and the bottom. So yes, you can fix it. You can always reframe video. You're just going to take a little bit of a qualitative hit when you do that.
Yeah, it depends on what resolution you record it to as well. I'm not really sure what would create that. I think that one of the things that you may have done is the record settings may have been different than the display settings. So take a look at that. There's the first screen has got display settings, the second screen's got record settings, and sometimes they're not quite they don't quite line up there. So you may want to look at that to see what's going on. It's an odd behavior to have there. So, but it's also important. One of the things that I do pretty carefully is when I'm prepping a camera for a shoot that matters, I'm going to shoot footage. I'm going to take footage off the camera. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to put it back on to make sure that I'm getting what I expect to from the camera before I go out and shoot something. It looks like you were shooting tests of things from the YouTube, and the YouTube looked like 16:9 to me. So I'm not sure exactly whether you already did a crop on it or not, but it didn't look like a 4:3 image, at least when I viewed it. The link that you put up there. So, but give those a shot. If you get more questions, let us know. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to say, I looked at the video and it played 16:9 on my screen. I was possibly that the player that you're using is set to anamorphic or squeeze. Maybe it squeezed the 16:9 into 4:3 format, so it may have been set to anamorphic. If everything looks stretched vertically, that may be what you're seeing. So look at your viewer in case that's what the problem is.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from David Brady in New York City. VMware Desktop Hypervisor Pro apps now available for personal use. What are some practical uses in production, virtual or physical, and how will you use it, if at all?
Go, Jeffrey.
So I started downloading them last night. I was really hoping to have them up and running for today's show. The biggest one is you could do something like use the NDI bridge, which would be perfect for that. Any apps that would work on Linux or Windows 11, you could, and don't require a lot of process, could be used on those. And then, of course, you can also spin up a lot of different things with these apps. Of course, this is all meant mainly for enterprise use, for testing and for programming and stuff like that. But you can do some very lower level stuff. You can't run like a vMix instance or anything like that, unless you have a super beefy machine. But and even if that's the case, it's still a very unreliable beefy machine.
Go ahead, Liam.
Yeah, Jeffrey's given some really good answers of what you could use it for. I was going to say that the reason this is happening is that there's been a shift in the marketplace of where and how people provide solutions. With the cloud coming around, with AWS, etc., VMware, which was a really important part of the infrastructure in the past, has lost ground and now is pushing through to put things available so that people can start using their platform, bringing it to their own environment, spinning things up, and then being able to push them out to the cloud.
Next question.
Next one comes from Mike Edwards in Brooklyn, New York. Morning, everyone. What does the panel think of the new family of Hemisphere mics from Universal Audio? How do these stack up for live streaming in House of Worship settings, or are they better suited for recording purposes? And he's got a link.
Good, Jeff.
So Universal Audio had the Sphere microphones, which were dual capsule that allowed you to have, they had a front-facing capsule and a rear-facing capsule. And so they've taken those and they've used just a single forward-facing cardioid capsule, and they're calling those the Hemisphere line. They have cardioid and dynamic versions. What makes these different from regular mics, they are just regular mics, but they go into a piece of software that does modeling, trying to emulate the sounds of other classic microphones, and the ability to turn those microphones off axis and turn on a high-pass filter that may or may not be on the microphone itself. That plugin, that software, does have some amount of latency. If you're using UAD hardware, that is extremely low latency. But if you're going into a standard DAW, they're going to have latency through that. So I would definitely say that these are more for recording because you don't want to add latency to your streaming.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a huge fan of modeling microphones because I would typically prefer to use the actual microphone that I want to get the sound signature of, or EQ the microphone I have to taste, which you'll most likely end up be doing anyway. If you do want to use these in a live situation, as Jeff mentioned, use UAD hardware because they have DSP chips that do this internally at the lowest latency possible, and also I would go for a much larger. I know Mike Edwards has an Apollo Twin. I'd probably go with an Apollo with more I/O in it, wherein you can just use it as a simple insert on a live mixing console, as opposed to sending it down the DAW and do a round trip through the computer. Use it just as an in and an outlet, just like an insert.
The next question.
Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois. Up next, Canon released the new R1 as the flagship model for the R system at midnight last night. Why would they have a midnight press release?
Go ahead, Liam.
So the why of the timing, it's the Media Production and Technology Show launched today in London. That's the biggest show that is in the UK, so I'm assuming that they've timed it for that. I would also say that there is a lot of things get announced in the middle of the daytime that never ever see the light of day, and putting it at the beginning may enable them to get better airtime and better timing to get market awareness.
Good, Courtney.
Well, these new products may have been in the hands of a few people that were under embargo until they release.
They're not even announcing a new product, though. They're just announcing that they're working on it. I mean, if you read the thing,
well, it's announced as our new flagship.
Yeah, but it's not. But there's no pictures
model.
that says we're working on it. Like it said announced today that is currently developing the EOS R1. It's like we couldn't get it done, but we're going to tell people that it's out there, and they don't want people to go buy something else.
Well, there's a picture. Look. There it is. There's a little picture right there.
The epitome of vaporware. I mean, this is. I don't even know if this exists enough to call it vaporware. I mean, it's an amazing. Like I felt like it when I read the Reddit. I'm a big fan of Canon cameras. I've got a Canon camera sitting right next to me, the R5. But it just felt
You're
like
seeing me on a Canon camera.
I know. It really felt desperate. Like there's something coming up, and I just could imagine someone in the back office going, "Well, just say something. Tell them that we're working on it."
It's a new category, pre-vaporware.
Exactly. It's
Well,
vaporware.
they release it at midnight because any kind of restrictions on releasing that information expire at a certain time of the day, and midnight is the beginning of a new day, so that's why.
Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
I'd say no matter what time of day, it's the middle of the night somewhere in the world.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, when you said midnight, like midnight where?
Time zones.
Yeah, exactly. Just happened to be midnight in someplace. Yeah.
In Chicago. Well, what time is it in Japan when it's,
exactly. It's midnight somewhere. It's also 5 o'clock somewhere. Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. What are your Google IQ takeaways? Gemini talks to Gmail, AskPhotos, Agents, Astra, Flash, VO, Trillium, AI Overview, Gems, Tokens, Gemma, LearnLM, and he's got a link there because he was tired of acronyms.
Go ahead, Courtney.
It's Google I.O., and I did try and watch the keynote. And,
you tried.
My takeaway was, God, it took forever, and there was so much fat in it. That a lot of production nonsense and music nonsense and little animations between announcements. It was very frustrating. Now that we're all used to Apple's tight, edited, releases of information, it seemed like it took forever to get all of those things. I've taken a look at a few of the things. They're catching up with OpenAI. With their release schedule, and I thought they felt the pressure to release a lot of this stuff. So I haven't tried to use any of these things yet. They're just now rolling out, so I'll have more of an opinion later.
I think Apple made the keynote what it is and killed it. Like it's impossible to watch. Like the other, we mentioned it a little bit yesterday. OpenAI's they had their little announcement as well. That was a little video of them, and they made it look like it was an event. It was just I think it was just like a little bit of a record that they put out that looked like it. And we've been doing those for a decade at least. It's not worth it anymore. Like, just cut a show together, and tell us what you want to talk about, and then move to conversation or talk about other things, but tighten it all up. It doesn't. This whole idea that we're going to present it to you was done because we used to present it to you because we didn't have HD cameras. We didn't have the ability to show you a high resolution, so we had to bring all the press in and we had to do all these things. But we've now done this thing where we're doing something that doesn't belong in the current technology anymore. Like these live presentations. NVIDIA did a pretty good one, but that's the only one I've seen in the last 5 years that's been worth watching. And so I think that I did the same thing. I turned the Google one on. I was like, oh, okay. What I did do, and I think that while I didn't really like the presentation of it, the pace of it, the OpenAI one happening right before the Google event took a lot of air out. I got to tell you, I went out walking in the evening. I walk a little bit, and I decided to turn on ChatGPT 4.0 and just talk to it and ask it random questions about science, about cooking, about audio, about other things while I was walking. Life-changing. Like, I don't have any other way to say it. Like, it is the craziest thing I have ever, I don't know of any other time when I was just walking for 45 minutes talking to a virtual agent. It sounds like this person talking to me. There's a couple places where she just kept talking. I literally had to quit the app to get her to, it's new. You just kept on talking. I was like, quit. And I had to pull out and then turn it back on again. I was like, stop.
No
I'm walking along a path in the woods going, stop. So anyway, because what happened was someone walked past me and was talking about, I don't know, credit tokens or something like that as they walked by, and then she just latched onto that and just started talking about it. And I was like, I don't want to talk about credit tokens. So anyway, what's interesting is that it's so good at giving you a certain amount of information, and then you just keep on asking questions. Well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And you just keep on digging into it. And I was like, I'm going to have my headphones on all the time. Like, I'm just going to be walking around just going, what about this thing? And just random, like, I saw something and I'm interested in it and I'm going to now ask about it. And then I'll go move on to whatever I was doing. It's not stuff that I need for work. It's just stuff that I need to, acquire information. And so I think they took a lot of wind out of everybody's AI sales on Monday. Because it is the biggest move forward again, like that I've ever seen. Like, just of changing how people operate around information. But that said, the Google stuff. I couldn't watch I was waiting. I think The Verge or somebody put up like the Google I/O in 12 minutes. I'm going to watch that. I didn't get to it yesterday, but I'll watch that eventually. Yeah, there we go. 12 minutes. That's the one I want to watch. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I'm just really happy that Trillium is back. I love that chat form. For me, there's a lot there that was great in there. Once you got past the opening, I started 30 minutes late, and I started YouTube at 1.5 speed, and I still had to skip over the DJ and everything. But the one thing that I've noticed is, once again, a lot of these roles that people would do manually is starting to change in multiple ways. One thing I think of is the person that actually looks at the consistency of a TV show or a movie. Like if they flip scenes, is this person got the cup in the right hand or the left hand? I think that this is going to be something that can actually affect that type of role because then they can watch for these things and be alerted that, okay, the cup's in the left hand and the right hand. I love the fact that the video is starting to play. We've got a lot of AI video that's really starting to ramp up. I think we're still a little bit of ways away from the consumer version of that, even though there's a couple movies that are in production right now. One's called, I think, Next Stop Paris. And there's already a 12-minute AI video that's been made, and a lot of other things. So being able to create content from there is going to be great for somebody like me because I can start with a script. I can move into the video recording video and then move into some production aspects of it. So really excited about what's happening there.
I think the thing I'm most interested in with AI video is demos. Like I want to go shoot something and I get a demo of something. The closer I can get to something that is just lets me put together a storyboard for a pitch, a video storyboard of I'm right now I'm working on a music video and I want to pitch, this is all the shots that we want to do. And I'm still struggling with even getting Midjourney to give me stills of what's in my head. So the closer we can get to a point where I can sketch that kind of thing out, and then, because I'm still going to go back to a human, I'm going to do chicken scratches and I'm going to send it to a storyboard artist, and then they're going to give me back something that looks nice. I'm going to show it to the band.
And that's one of the things they did talk about was storyboarding in the
I think storyboarding, and I think, again, being able to do video of that and being able to cut it together. I'm not going to use that video, but I think people try to jump into, we're going to do feature films with this, or we're going to do finished products with this, and I think that's a long way away. We have trouble doing it with humans in a way that most people want to watch. I mean, only 1% of the videos that we make people actually watch because the rest of it is crud. And that's with a lot of humans that have been done this for a long time. So AI is going to take a little time to get to the point where we actually want to watch a whole thing from it. But I will say that as a prep tool and as a design tool, I think it's pretty powerful. Go ahead, Courtney. Can't hear you, Courtney.
Yeah, I blinked 3 times on that microphone before it let go. Anyway, sorry. I was really pretty unimpressed with their text-to-video generative AI. After seeing Sora and Vesa and some of the other stuff that's been coming out of OpenAI, these are tools that they haven't released yet. They're still in the production, and Google is, I guess, going to try and release these. But I don't think it compared with any of the stuff that we've seen, the advanced stuff we've seen come out of OpenAI. So, and I'm not sure the thing you mentioned the OpenAI little video that they had demonstrating their new back and forth ChatGPT 4.0. I loved it in the demonstration. I think it was part of that was taped live. I don't think they cut it down because they set the phone down on the table, and she goes, "I see we're looking at wood."
No, I think they definitely left that stuff into but I just it was
it was a live demonstration.
Yeah, it was a dumb presentation of the most brilliant technology I've seen in a decade. It was just that was my thing. Next question.
Next question comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. I've been dealing with digital audio workstation control issues using Logic and my Yamaha DM3, confirmed by support as being a known firmware bug. For studio use cases, would you change the mixer or the DAW control surface as a workaround?
Go ahead, Mickey.
You don't mention what type of studio you're talking about. I would assume you're talking about the recording studio since you mentioned a DAW. I would certainly prefer a purpose-built controller for controlling a DAW. Um, a, a a DAW controller has a specific functionality in it that's useful for controlling the DAW. Things like selecting different automation modes, navigating the timeline, which you don't really need, which isn't available in a live mixing console. So I would definitely recommend going for a purpose-built controller. For folks that we work with, composers that we work with that work in Logic, they like to use our SSL UF8 controllers for Logic. It works pretty darn well. The Euphonics, the Yukon controllers also work well with Logic, but by a long shot, a lot of people that we work with prefer the UF8s.
Next question.
Samuel Nordvik in Norway is up next. Do you have experience with programmatically raising or normalizing audio levels using ffmpeg-normalize function? Is it essential to have an audio file with the least amount of compression when performing a process like this?
Good, Mickey.
So there are different reasons why you would want to use dynamic range compression on a mix. Of course, you have the aesthetic reason, wherein you want, say, something to stand out or sound stronger. You may want to use dynamic range compression for that. The other reason would be technical reasons. Say, if you need to hit a technical spec, a tech spec of, say, loudness or a specific level you want to hit, or to hit to be able to give a slightly more smooth mix in terms of less rise and fall in level, so that people can more easily listen to it, say on smaller playback systems like phone speakers, computer speakers, and the like. I find that it's much better to actually mix to the spec as opposed to relying on a process at the very, very end to do a massive amount of changes. So I would actually mix towards it, do it on the channel level instead of at the very final full mix level on the master mix bus. I mix towards the spec, and then just have the final normalization or limiting stage just as a safety measure, but do the actual work earlier on.
Go, Jeff.
So normalization historically has been peak normalization. Look at the peak level of the file. If it comes up, minus 12, add 12 dB of gain to raise that minus 12 up to 0 dBFS. There is average normalization, and then there is loudness compensated normalization, which uses one of the LUFS calculations, so like EBU R128, that does its normalization based on average level as we humans would perceive it. And so that's what this ffmpeg-normalize does. It'll do all three, but that's its default is to do loudness normalization. I think we almost need to develop additional terms besides just saying normalize. We need to specify which of those three we're doing. The problem with this is it's really designed for throwing a bunch of, say, music files at it and making all your music files at same average level, but it is re-encoding stuff. So if you're throwing, MP4s or something like that at it, you're re-encoding those, which is a bad idea. Does it matter how much compression is in that file? No, it really doesn't. That, as Mickey said, is a creative decision. And that's a mixed decision. It will do the normalize function either way, whether it has compression or not.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Art Stifel in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Love Bert Monroy's work. That was yesterday. Great. As a School of Visual Arts alumni with a BFA in illustration in 1987, I'd love to know when he taught there and any galleries where he now shows his work.
I don't know. I don't know when he taught there. The only place I know his work is publicly available is the Computer Science History or the Computer History Museum in Mountain View. It's right next to Google. so that's the only place in that huge mural that he showed that was 5 feet by 25 feet. I've actually seen it there. It's a pretty amazing work. I do think that we need to create a virtual one, as I said in the show yesterday. So I'm going to try to persuade him to let us build something. I think that would be a lot of fun. Next question.
Eduardo Augustine, Panama. How can I create custom multi-view for commentators and other watchers? I'm using an HDMI splitter from ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. Suggestions?
Go, Leo.
So there are a number of ways of doing it, but one of the things I always say when you're trying to create the multi-view is it doesn't matter if somebody sees something that they don't need. The whole point of the multi-view is that you give them the views that they have to need as well. So I actually find that it's easier to send more of the screens. In the ATEM Mini, depending on which version you've got, you've said the Extreme ISO, it has 2 outputs on the HDMI, and you can change both of those outputs to different things, but you can only set one multi-view output or one display that I'm aware of how the multi-view goes out. But as I said, try and work out that you send more than you send less.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, it's a little more cumbersome with an ATEM Mini that has HDMI connections. If you have, say, a system that's SDI based, you can send all your sources or even the ATEM's outputs or the switcher's outputs to a router to split off the signals, and then you can send one copy of the signal to a multi-view device. Blackmagic has them, Decimator has them, AJA, Evertz has multi-view devices wherein you can create a multi-view of a 2x2, 3x3, 4x4, and select any of your sources coming into either the router or the multi-view to fill up a custom multi-view to send to different displays.
Yeah, and you could theoretically run past 4 of those signals, for instance, through some kind of 4x multi-view. So Monoprice, for instance, makes one that you can have 4 in and 4 out, and then you have one that's going out to a monitor, and then you can look at all 4 of them or look at one or the other and have them all passing through. The problem is you're putting now something between you and your program signal, which is usually something we try to avoid. As you start to go down this path, as Mickey pointed out, you really want to start thinking about and the other way to do that, by the way, would be to split right out of the sources. Just have a little dumb splitter that splits out and then goes to a multi-view. And so you can kind of build that out. So, and there are 4x4 multi-views are relatively inexpensive, $250. So if you again, adding things before you do your program signal creates a single point of failure for that thing. And if it's cheap and like having a $50 splitter always makes me nervous. But most of the time you're going to find that kind of thing works pretty well without too much stability issues. But it's a little bit concerning. When you start deciding you want to do all these things is when you start moving to NDI or SDI typically or 2110. Go ahead, Courtney.
I don't have the ATEM Mini Extreme, but I was going to ask you guys that too. Can you create a custom super source for up and then keep that as a separate out? Put that as a separate output on the second HDMI without putting it on the air.
You could. I think you can push the super source as one of the. I have to look at it. There's 4 outputs from the SDI version of the
DVE,
thing, and the DVE. Well, there's 4 outputs from the computer from the Mini Extreme ISO SDI. There's only 2 in the HDMI, and so you have more options there. And I believe SuperSource is one of the outputs that you can do. It is with a lot of the other ATEMs. I haven't tried it, so I'm just guessing. So it may not be, but most ATEMs will put SuperSource out as a separate output. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, so I think you're right on there, but I believe the super source can only have 2 sources on it, so you can't add in 3 or 4. I believe it only has 2.
I think you can do 4. I think you can do 4. All super sources, I think, do 4.
Okay, all right, I missed it. Yeah, actually, you're right. I remember that. But I was going to say that one of the things that's fairly cheap now, because a lot of the Blackmagic switchers have moved over to 4K, there are a glut of the distributors that are 1080p, and if you're on an Extreme, you're on a 1080p production, so you can pick one up secondhand pretty cheap.
Yeah, and I will say that there's a huge jump. I wouldn't jump from an Extreme to a 1ME. You'll find you're actually going backwards a little bit, but jumping from an Extreme to a 2ME or 4ME, it's a dramatically different experience, as a user of how many tools you have, how much I/O you have, et cetera. So I would highly recommend it. And the good news is the software looks the same. If you're using Mix Effect Pro, which I don't know who would use an ATEM without it, it'll still just attach to that and then have more things. Next question.
David Brady in New York is coming in through the QR code to this time. He says, with the Zoom Room 6 in the enterprise, is it beneficial to segregate NDI traffic using a discovery server? We have about 8,000 rooms worldwide.
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh boy, that's a lot of rooms. So it depends, but if you're trying to get, generally an NDI discovery server is useful when you want to avoid MDNS hitting your entire network. It's not usually used to bridge things worldwide. I think I would look more into a bridge, NDI bridge, unless you're doing something that I'm not thinking of.
I would say you absolutely want to segregate the traffic. Next question.
Next one comes from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. I can't wait to use Google's AI tool to automatically find and organize emailed receipts while creating a spreadsheet of expenses. Can you?
Go ahead, Leo.
I understand where Paul's coming on this, but I wanted to say about the whole thing with where we're going with Google AI, and the thing is to me, I almost see this as a big jump. The jump that we saw when we suddenly went to have Wikipedia, the jump that when we suddenly had YouTube that was available, I see this suddenly opening a door that wasn't there before to be able to get information in a way that you weren't able to see it. And exactly how you were talking about it, Alex, earlier. And this is going to be, that's almost that point where we're going to look back and we're going to go, how did I deal with this before? How did I do the work that I did in the past? How did I look up this pasta recipe, or how to fix this car, or do all these things that I had to do myself? I mean, it would be great. You just hold up a phone and it listens to your car and tells you what's wrong. That's what's going to be a big change. And although I can see there's weird or funny ways of doing this, we're suddenly going to be looking at this saying, why did I ever type?
There was a comedian that was talking. I can't think of his name right now, but it was a comedian talking about the fact that back when he was getting started, he said there was a credit card and they had to pull out this big thing and set it down on a piece of paper and go shunk shunk, and get your credit card, and that was the only way that you could do it. And he goes, and then there was ATM. Before ATMs, there was just a bank, and if you didn't have any cash on. If you didn't have any money on Sunday, you just didn't go anywhere because you didn't have any way to pay for it. And he said it was just like this. It was a whole different world. And I realized we're at that moment where a lot of these things just start to solve themselves. I when I do my little walks in the evening, I have an app called Merlin. And if I hear a bird that I don't recognize, I just stop for a second. I hit Merlin, and it just tells me what that bird is, and it tells me when it's playing versus another bird. It'll highlight the birds and you'll suddenly realize, oh, I was listening for this one bird, but there's actually 6 birds here, and here's which ones are playing right now, and it records it so I can play it back and listen to that bird, each bird, and it'll show you which one. You just hit the button of I want to see the Anna's hummingbird, and it plays that sample back for you so you can recognize it, and it's just kind of like this. And then I looked at something on the path, and it looked like it's like, is that poison ivy or poison oak? And I pointed at it, and it popped. I took a picture of it, and it popped up and said, "Yep, that's poison oak." so it did, and so that idea that all that stuff is just at our fingertips is going to be amazing. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I can just imagine it go. That was a blue tufted titmouse and a 1995 BMW car alarm. Anyway, a lot of this AI stuff takes care of a lot of stuff that I used to use with scripting, and I used to write batch files that would do scripting that would handle a lot of this, search through my emails, pull out this, transfer them to this folder. But now it's going to be automated, so you can just ask it to do that stuff either verbally or through a typed query. It's going to create those little assistants that can take care of all that stuff without ever having to write any code. So I think the people that used to write a lot of scripting code is now going to speed things up a lot for them.
I think for small amounts of code that are things that are personal, I think it makes sense. I think that you still need an advanced programmer to do real software development. Maybe not forever, but I think right now I was talking to someone about like, why don't we just make this do something that we needed to do? But I'm like, because 100,000 people are going to use it, and if there's any sharp edges, they're all going to get caught on it. And so we need to have. I think that when I talk to advanced programmers, when they're brainstorming, they're finding that coding is really, really useful, but they oftentimes still need to make it more efficient and figure those things out. But I think that a lot of us will start to build little. To your point, if you combine this with things like Arduino and other things like this, you could be sitting there going, well, I just want this thing to do, and just naturally tell it what you want it to do, and have it just give you something that you can put onto your Arduino that will run something, your water, sprinklers or something like that. And it's going to be not trying to figure it out. It's going to be a natural conversation with this is what I want, and have it just create it. And I do think that as we bridge, if you look at the, whether they're Raspberry Pis or Arduinos or other microbits or whatever, being able to just say what I want, have it just generate something. And as we tie that closer together, being able to control things in the real world, I think that there's a lot of really interesting possibilities as we start to move forward. But even just, me being able to go, yeah, give me all the Amazon receipts, grab all the, take all the Amazon receipts that I've gotten, grab all the totals, put them into an Excel file and deliver them, send them to me or whatever. That's kind of amazing. Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
I think the thing that I like the most is the way that we're going to be getting input from visual and audio. Written is important, but I think we're going to be getting more visual and audio things. So you're able to say, for example, good example, as we've had for a while, you take a picture of something and it tells you exactly what's in the picture. It finds that for you, or it listens, as you said, when we were listening to tracks on music 5 years ago and we could actually find out what the track is. I think it's when these things start clashing together and combining that we're going to see the power of this that we just didn't realize we could get. So you'll be able to see there somebody is walking past and they'll be able to tell if there's a problem that they need to see a doctor about because of their walk. You're going to be able to find different things, and you're going to be able to work out that somebody's going to be sitting there watching you cook your food and telling you that's a bit too hot, or it's a bit too cold, or it's not going to be right, etc., etc.
Well,
and replace our, help assist us.
Well, and like when I was doing my little walk, I said there's an Indian pastry that blows up like a ball. What is that called? I don't remember what it is. What is that called? And it just said, that's pani puri. And I said, how do you make it? And it just told me. I'm sitting there walking as it describes exactly how to make pani puri. But it was just like I don't even know I don't know what I'm looking for. I just can give you a rough thing, and it immediately figured out what that was.
I think when it then says, Amazon, order me the ingredients to make pani puri by the time I get home, that's when it's even better.
Exactly. And what I imagined is that it was going to be able to eventually just show me a video of how to do it. Like it's describing how to do all these things in text, but I was like, it'll just make a video of these are all the steps that you're going to need to make that happen. A quick reminder, of course, is that this is the audio day. This is Wednesday. We have different days that we have different specialists on. So Monday is more business oriented. Tuesday is more graphics oriented. Wednesday is audio. Thursday is video, and Friday is IT and infrastructure and how we get things done. And so just a quick reminder that you can ask questions on each one of those days, and I would recommend asking the specialists on those days when you can. You can ask those questions any time of the day, though, using askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. That works 24/7. So if you're not watching the show right now, just keep that somewhere, and you can send us those questions, and we'll do our best to outdo the AI. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Peter Belbin in Houston, Texas. And Peter says, can Courtney, Jeff, and Bill describe their lighting setups? They have a nice separation of themselves from their backgrounds today.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I'm just using one of these Whar, very cheap panel lights, which is lighting my face up. This is adjustable in color, temperature, and brightness, completely variable from one color temperature to the other, which is necessary for me because I have a big French door next to me that when the sunlight comes up, and it's a cloudy day today, so luckily I'm not smacked in the face with the sunlight, that is very warm coming through all that smog in LA early in the morning. So I have to compensate for that, and I move that light to compensate for it. And in the background, I just have two FEIT bulbs that are color bulbs, RGB bulbs, that are Wi-Fi controlled, so I can set the color on them, and they're just pointing at the wall back there, and a little bit of custom-made LED that lights the background award stuff on top of the old that old Edison player back there. So that's mine. I do have a little bit of a light, since I wear a hat a lot of times because I'm follically challenged. That lights up underneath the hat down here. It's just low, and it bounces off of a little white card, and it just catches a little sparkle in the eyes and gives me a little under the hat light.
Go ahead, Bill.
So let me cut to this camera, and hopefully you'll be able to see things. So way up there at the top is a 1x4 softbox with a low TOTA LED in it that's variable, so I can dim it down. That's kind of my overall key light. It's up high, and it's also got a 40-degree grid on it so that it doesn't throw any spill on the back. I've got two small kind of 4-inch by maybe 10-inch little panels here. These are really cheap, newer lights, but they are used purely for facial fill, just to get those socket. Normally an overhead key like that gives you a dark socket in there. So those are my fill lights. I have a rim light up there. It's a really cheap, newer 100, I think. That's just providing a little bit of shoulder rim light and separation. And then in the background, it's just making sure that every light that I have is on something and doing a particular function. And mostly they're gridded off or black wrapped off so that they just give me the amount of light I want. And that's how I shape that little one over my shoulder on this side, raking across the blue curtains that are back there.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Wasn't sure if this question was for Jeff or Jeffrey, but I'll take it. I have probably the same panels as Courtney, the newer, however you say their double E name, 8-inch panels bicolor. So I have one there off to my left, one off to my right. Those are making kind of an equilateral triangle just because they happen to land nicely over my left and right speakers. This one is aimed directly at me. That one actually bounces up off of a 45-degree sloped ceiling. I have a light directly above my head, flat against the ceiling. That is variable temperature and variable brightness, and if I want, it can do all kinds of colors, which I don't want it to do. So it's just kind of like a little bit of a hair light up there. And then I have the same kind of light, which is just doing some blue in the very back corner of the room, and then there's a blue light bulb back there behind a chair.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Rian Smith in Trinidad, the West Indies. We've got to get this guy on the show, Hugh Hou. He is one of the best 360 and 180 VR people on YouTube. In this video, he was showing Unreal Engine on YouTube Live 360, and he's got the link there.
Yeah, we should get him on. So that's a great suggestion. The best thing to do is to go in Discord and put it in the second hour suggestions. But we'll see if we can't get him on. He is the most prolific 180 and 360 person right now on YouTube, and I highly recommend him. Next question.
Bobby Rafferty in Central Florida is up next. Has anyone heard of or used Quickture AI video editing tool? Excuse me.
And here's what it looks like here. This is what we have here. You can sign up for early access. It says you can edit the news before the storm clears. You can sports highlights by the game time. Finish that documentary. We'll see. So I mean, it is doing what a lot of things are. Auto rough cuts, I think, could potentially be really quick. Beats revealed, instant summaries. I mean, I think we are going to see these kinds of things. I think that the challenge is always that it gets oversold. Like, this is going to take care of everything for you. It may be able to be a great assistant and put a lot of things together that's going to speed up your workflow. And I think that overselling it makes it a little rough. But I do think that these kinds of tools are going to make our job a lot easier, especially when you're talking about documentaries where you might be shooting 1,000 to 1 or 5,000 to 1, and you want to get the stuff that you need for something. I think that could be a really interesting tool to kind of pull a bunch of things together that you can then work with your editor. Next question.
Roz McNulty in Vancouver, Canada. Do bone conduction microphones exist in the way that bone conduction headphones exist? And if so, what brand and where?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Actually, well, in different ways, yes. You have basically the earbone mics, which are meant more for tactical. So you basically, if you're wearing a helmet and you're in a very noisy environment, that's where those come into play. And like I said, tactical. So if you're in the military or police type situations, you'd probably be wearing an earbone. Otherwise, piezos have been around for a long time. I've had microphones that were piezo microphones, mostly for bass drum, but they also have throat microphones, and these are meant for mostly for people that do lower frequency singing or beatboxing, things like that. They're called, I'm going to try and pronounce it, it's laryngophone. I think that's what it's called. But yeah, it just fits right on the throat, and then it can capture any type of audio from there.
Yeah, a lot of tactical units will use throat mics. This is something what it looks like here. So what you'll see here is this is the push to talk right here, and then this is on the throat, and it's going to pick up those vibrations. And what it's doing is it's picking up only the vibrations of your throat, and it's not picking up any of the external sounds. So if you've got a lot of noise, we've actually used throat mics for concert camera operators, so for their comms, because they're, it's really, really loud, and we still need to be able to talk to them. And we found no other way to do it other than to give them, they have a head. A lot of times they're putting on, they'll put their ear in, and then they're going to put some very, very high, noise cancellation headphones over top of it. And then, but they can't hear anything. They can hear you clearly. And to get them to be able to talk back, we use throat mics for them. And it's worked very, very effectively when you're talking about they're in an environment where oftentimes it's over 100 dB. And that has been a really effective way to get feedback from them. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to mention the throat microphones. There's modern versions of them, but you got to remember these were invented for World War II for fighter pilots to use in those propeller-driven aircraft so that they could communicate over their radios. Yeah. So they've been around a long time because it would filter out the low frequencies and just pull the voice frequencies directly from the larynx underneath the throat.
Next question.
Ryan Thompson in Houston, Texas is up next. Lectrosonics released a new version of Wireless Designer. Can this be used as a general purpose spectrum analyzer? And he's got a link to it there.
Good, Mickey.
To an extent, yeah. Of course, you would need a Lectrosonics receiver to be able to use the scan function within Wireless Designer. And the spectrum that you want to scan for needs to be covered by your receivers. This could be the venue receivers or any of their newer digital receivers that have a USB port on it. But yes, you could even export IAS files out of Wireless Designer for importing into, say, Soundbase or Shure's Wireless Workbench.
Next question.
Ash in Marlborough, New Jersey says, I'm planning to sell my house and would like to preserve a scanned version of my home as a memory. Is there a service that Office Hours could recommend that is reasonably priced in the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area?
It depends on what you consider reasonable. I mean, so to have someone come in and do a true scan of your house is probably going to be somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So a simple scan. I have a company in New York that has done my scans for venues, and for a simple scan of 5 or 10 scans, it's $2,500. And they do a good job, but it's $2,500, and that's only one room. So as you start to go around it, it gets more expensive. There is a possibility, if you're okay with it being used as a general purpose, like for us to use as R&D or for us to do other things like that. If you wanted to reach out to me in Discord, I have a scanner. We have people in that area that might be interested, and being able to use a house as a test thing would be very valuable to us. It's so hard to get somebody to let you into a house and scan it all. Given that you're leaving, it won't matter. But if you're willing to do that, there might be some ways that we could coordinate scanning and people and things like that. There might be some coverage of their, of their lunches and stuff like that. But outside of that, it would be pretty inexpensive if we were able to use the data. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, didn't Matterport or Google used to offer scanning the inside of your business for Google Street View?
Yeah, the geometry is trash though. I mean, so it looks really nice when you're walking through it. The Matterport stuff, I have a Matterport, and I used one. That's what I used before I had a BLK 360 to do these things, to do walkthroughs. And so the Matterport's really nice because it's automatic. You just walk around and it takes little 360s, and you can get it and builds a nice little tour. And it looks nice as long as you're in the photo version of it. As soon as you take the geometry, it's just garbage, And so that's not something that, and your iPhone will actually shoot a better version of it than the Matterport, because you can get to more places. You're not, it's not a circular. It's only from these points. With an iPhone, you're walking around with Polycam or whatever. So you could use your iPhone with Polycam and get a lot of the information that's there. But if you really want to scan it, again, you need a scanner. BLK 360 is kind of entry level, and then after that, it goes up and they get more expensive and so on and so forth. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next, and Douglas wonders, Rupert Neve Designs claims the RNDI direct box enhances the sound, in quotes, of any line-level instrument or source. Would those enhancements be noticeable or subtle, and would that depend on the source? And he's got a link there to the Neve product.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I think it would definitely depend on the source. I think what Rupert Neve's DI would probably do is not mess things up much better than lots of other DIs. So it's got, what's the most important thing for an active DI or any DI is of extremely high input impedance. So it's over 2 mega ohms, which is going to handle especially those tough things like passive electric basses. It'll handle them extremely well. It can drive a long wire. It's got good FET circuitry and then a transformer on the output. Will it enhance the sound of that? I think that would be pretty subtle, but it's not going to mess it up, which is the most important thing.
Good, Mickey.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to certainly be a subtle thing, especially since it's FET circuitry as opposed to, say, tube or valve-based amplifiers in there. I think aside from the type of source, the modulation or how loud the source is may also affect how much color is added into the signal.
Good, Marty.
Rupert Neve is a legendary designer of audio circuitry, going back decades, designing just amazing recording consoles, and so now he's getting into more of the accessory stuff. There are many aspects to something like a direct box that can alter its sound, that can change its sound, that can make it clearer or cloud things up. Things like input and output impedances, harmonics, different transformers produce different harmonics, second harmonics, third harmonics, even in odd harmonics. Odd harmonics generally sound dissonant. They sound wrong. They just put things out of place. Even harmonics are very musical, and this is a function of both the transformers and the circuitry itself. Things like the transient response and the headroom of the device. So many DIs are set up to accommodate instrument levels, which are fairly low and, about the level of a microphone. This can take a full-on line level signal up to 21 dB peak, which means that it won't saturate with that kind of thing. So whether it will be subtle or overt kind of depends on what you're comparing it to. But this device sounds like it would be very, very clean and give you lots and lots of detail of the instruments playing.
Next question.
Next one comes from Jeff Veely in Henderson, I'm assuming, Nevada. Could this be the final death of the Mac Interface laptop orange dot? I think so. And he's got a support document from Apple itself there. Link.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
The short answer is no. The reality is that if you want to remove the orange dot, they give you an option to do that, but they're not going to actively be promoting that option at all. Most people don't care about that orange dot. It's only anybody that's doing any type of production that does. They want to keep the security as high as possible. This diminishes security so that orange dot will stay.
It actually, yeah. So a couple things here. We did some research because we talked about this yesterday, and then I talked to some other folks, and we went back. So here's the interesting thing about this. So it's an amazing accommodation that Apple has made for us, for the not us office hours, but us as production people. So there was a hack. So the orange dot drives us crazy because we're trying to put something out, and we get this little orange dot on, in any screen that's not the main screen. You get an orange dot that tells you that there's video going out. And it makes everybody a little nutty because we don't want that orange dot because we're putting it out on a big screen. And we've been complaining about it since it arrived. Like little pings of talking to different people at Apple going, hey, how do we get rid of this orange dot? And then people figured out a way to hack it to do that, which is diminishing the security. And I think that what happened, I'm just guessing, is that Apple saw that you can fix the hack, or you can create a proper way to actually do this that doesn't reduce security. And so what Apple published is not the hack. What Apple did was build a pipeline for someone who knows what they're trying to get rid of it without reducing the security of their operating system, which is a really, they just kind of okay, if you're going to do this, let's do it safely. And so what you have to do this, in the Apple article describes it, is you have to go into recovery mode. So the reason that they do that is so that you can't you can't just turn it on somewhere. They built it so that you have to go into recovery mode. You then have to go to the terminal. You then have to run this script that will turn it off, which they built into the operating system for you to do this. This is a proper way to make this work. So they've built this in. This is new with the newer. I think it only works with this and maybe the last version, or maybe only Sonoma. So this is built into the operating system to serve people like us who know, hey, I want to get rid of that. I'm a grown up. I know that I'm turning off this little orange dot, but it's not reducing the security in the way that the hack did. The hack was opening all kinds of doors up. It was getting rid of the orange dot, but it was also opening a bunch of doors that hackers could use, and so on and so forth. So what Apple did is build something that much more carefully allows you to go in and turn it off if you know what you're looking for, and there's no way to accidentally turn that orange dot off. But when you do it the way that Apple is laying it out, it is going to give you a secure way to remove the orange dot if you're a production person. So I just want to explain what that is, because I was corrected a little bit based on what we talked about yesterday, and I applaud Apple for making this. It's a huge upgrade for us to build something that is the appropriate amount of complexity that only we can use, but it does give us an official path and an official way to solve the orange dot problem. Great job, Apple. Next question.
Next one comes from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Jeffrey Power's YouTube channel just hit 10 million YouTube views. Yay! What do you predict for Geekazine YouTube views from now through 2034?
And of course, we just asked the question. Jeffrey's not here, so we'll let's go to the next question. We'll see if we have time for that one to come back to it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is Gordon Lake in Los Angeles, California. Blackmagic 2110 IP Mini BiDirect 12G converter has a 5-pin XLR talkback headset connection. Can a floor director use this for comms without connecting a video signal to the SDI ports?
Go ahead, Courtney.
I doubt it. I don't have one of these, but since the comms are usually sent, I think, on 15 and 16 of the audio embed channels in the SDI, they would have to have an SDI signal going in there to split out the comms, and then it encodes all of that into the 2110. I don't think it can pull comms out of the 2110 without an SDI destination or source in there.
Yeah, that has been typically a problem with a lot of these that are doing video and audio together, is that the audio won't carry without the video. We don't know until we test it. Hopefully, maybe we can get a test unit and play with it a little bit. But I don't think we're going to be able to do that. We got a quick question here that Jeffrey, we missed you, Jeffrey. We had a quick question for you. Let's go ahead and do that, but we'll have to answer it relatively quickly. Go ahead.
Jeffrey Power's YouTube channel just hit 10 million YouTube views. What do you predict for Geekazine YouTube views from now through 2034? And what would you like to see Jeffrey change and review?
I hope I'm alive in 2034. I don't have any thought on this, so thank you for that.
Well, congratulations on getting the 10 million
Congratulations
views.
on the milestone.
It's a lot of work to get there. Coming up, we're going to have Bill Wax here in just a couple minutes, but quick announcements for today. We had to move our interview with Emery Wells from Frame.io and Adobe to today. We had some technical issues. I had some technical issues yesterday. So at noon today, Pacific Standard Time, it's 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Emery Wells is going to be joining us right here on this channel, right here in the same Mukana. So you can ask your questions. Emery Wells is the founder of Frame.io, sold it to Adobe for a couple dollars, and is now rolling out version 4, which is a huge upgrade. And we're going to get an opportunity to beta test it. So as we get ready to beta test as a group, if you're interested, I put that in Discord as far as the sign-up sheet. But if you are interested in beta testing it, you get to listen to Emery talk about it and why he did it. But we're going to be able to jump in and actually work with some of the folks at Adobe on it. So take a look at that and look for that announcement in Discord under the Alex announcements. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about lenses, what lenses we pick and why. So if you're interested in figuring out what that looks like, it's a video day, of course. Friday, they're going to be brainstorming for the foundational infrastructure. So if you're interested and you've got ideas for Friday, then go ahead and throw those in. And on Saturday, of course, is Q&A. Sunday is introspection. And a lot of people, they ask questions randomly about office hours, and we say, just ask for Sunday. Sunday is the introspection day. This is the day that we talk about office hours, or we talk about more philosophical things. You can still ask technical questions, but it's really a day for us to kind of figure things out. So join us on Sunday. It's a great day, and it's a really fun conversation most Sundays.